Okay, everybody. I've been pulling my hair out for the last 3 days with the electrical gremlins in the trunk of this Jeep. I've changed a whole bunch, or cleaned a whole bunch of grounds, changed out grounding bolts, checked all the wires. I still have some more grounds I want to do just as a precautionary, preventive maintenance kind of thing. The rear liftgate glass flip out doesn't work every time, and the wiper motor is really weak. I've already changed out the wiper motor, and it's still weak. It just does not want, you put any pressure on it whatsoever, and it just stalls, and then it stops. I'm getting good voltage on the lines that go back there. I'm getting good grounds. And then I disconnected, this is the actual flip up glass ajar micro switch, and every time I disconnect this from the actual solenoid, the lift up glass solenoid, the solenoid works much, much better. So checking the voltage on that, when this thing gets actuated, all of a sudden the voltage drops, which it's supposed to, the BCM is supposed to, do that, but then as soon as it's closed, the voltage doesn't come back right away, and then it kind of flutters around a little bit. And I think that this particular guy is telling the BCM the wrong story. Pop the end of it off, and holy cow, isn't even touching. I mean, it was barely touching. I bent it just a smidge, but it's got two different contacts in here. This one wasn't even in its seat. So I'm gonna take it the rest of the way apart, and it actually looks like there's some maybe water. There's definitely some fluid in this little rubber boot here. I was sort of getting continuity, and now I'm not. So I'm gonna finish taking it apart, clean it all up, test it all out, put it all back together, and hopefully that'll solve the problem. This doggone little switch here is a royal pain in the butt. I was able to separate the actual micro switch from the rest of the body. There's just two terminals that go from the inside and stick out right here. The actual micro switch itself is just the little part with the blue on it. I pulled the rubber boot off, cleaned out the inside, cleaned up the contacts with some brake clean and an acid brush. Then I resoldered those. I don't even know if they were actually soldered before, but they didn't really look like it. But they're actually soldered together now. There's just a little metal ring in there that the rubber boot pushes down and makes contact with a metal stud. I'm gonna call that good. Go slap this in and see if it works. All right, so this whole thing is only held in by one screw. The release mechanism goes inside here, and this paw pushes on the actual release lever, like so. All right, there's one screw that goes through this guy. Let me see here. Yep, right there. Right there. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit this a few times without the thing connected. Each time it sounds good. Full throttle. Now we'll plug the sensor back in, the jar sensor, see what happens. Nope. Still not telling the computer. I don't know what's going on. Doggone it. All right, so after getting the trunk put back together and things are still kind of a bit goofy, I got the grounds on the engine block taken care of. Now I've gotten all the grounds other than the under the center console, which I'll be doing that next. I did tear apart the passenger side door, front door, and checked out the wiring harness in the hinge, and I didn't find anything there. I just tore apart the driver's side door again, and I did find two broken wires down here. So this kind of kills me because I've already had this part several times now. You can see I've already got 3 fixes in this harness here. I just cut the wires, added in some nice soft wire, and hooked it all together. I just found this yellow and violet one, which looks familiar from the back end, and the orange and red stripe, which I can't find on the diagram. Doesn't even show it. I found them just because if you look at your wires individually and kind of run your finger along them, you know, just like that, you'll find like a weak spot. All I did to these two was just pull on them and they just pulled right apart. So there might have been a strand or two still holding together, and that's why I didn't see any predominant problems specifically, but these were definitely shot. The other ends I've already pulled out up top here, and I have pulled this down and kind of looked at the rest of it. I didn't see anything else glaring, but I know my main power and my main ground have broke over the past couple of years, and those got fixed. The rest of these wires don't seem to have any weak spots in them that I can see or feel. So I don't know if this is going to take care of the problem or not. That rear windshield wiper and the flipper glass switch, but these are those two wires, and I'm running out of space to put butt connector. So I think with these two, I'm actually gonna, get some small gauge wire. I think these are 20 gauge. I'm gonna strip them back, throw some new flex wire in there, and then solder it with some heat shrink over top of it, just to minimize the space in here. Because holy crap, before you know it, this whole thing's gonna be 4 inches around, and we'll go from there. See what I'm doing with my finger there? Just run it along that line. You'll feel it if there's a kink or a weak spot. Well, that escalated quickly. All right, so as you can see, I got basically all of the wiring ripped out. Got the whole underside of the dash torn out. And got these junction blocks out. Got the fuse box junction blocks pulled out. All to get to this wiring harness that runs on the inside all the way back, and I pulled all of that out too, all the way back, and then even into the trunk area. Got the whole back side of the trunk ripped out. So getting this involved does kind of stink, ripping all this stuff out, but I was kind of running out of options. When you're looking for broken wires, especially with these itty bitty little 20 gauge like 6-7 strand wires, I usually grab onto them, spread them all out, grab onto it and just kind of run my fingers through it looking for a weak spot, okay? And I did find one, and it does happen to be the pink wire that feeds the rear wiper window and the flipper window release hatch. When I found this wire, it was just a little bit of a weak spot, and all I did was pull on it, and it split right half in two. You can see all the white crap on the inside there. So a wire something like this can be a real bugger to find, because I was getting 12 volts. I was reading 12 volts at the back, and that is enough. One strand is what it looks like out of this itty bitty little wire. One strand was holding it, and that is enough to give you 12 volts. But it's not a big enough wire to carry the current to do the necessary job, like run the windshield wiper or actuate. So it took a second for the actuator to, or the release solenoid for the flipper motor, or for the flip glass, to, I'm not really charged, but to get enough juice. Whereas the wiper motor, again, same thing, it got enough to just start moving, but not enough current can go through that one itty bitty little strand. Real pain in the butt troubleshooting something like this. Kind of just got to dig into it. Well, it's all put back together. That wire seems to have fixed a lot of things. The trunk glass works every time now. The wiper motor, plenty strong enough to go back and forth on its own, and it'll park. Hasn't done that in probably 4 years. Another thing, the interior dome lights didn't used to work, which it's been so long I kind of forgot whether they're supposed to or not. The side lights worked, but the overheads didn't. Now all the overheads, and even this light, which didn't used to come on, is now on. So yeah, I cleaned all the grounds. Let's see, 3 on the engine block, 2 on the front right fender well, 1 on the left front fender well, 1 under the driver's seat, 1 under the passenger seat, 2 under the center console. I didn't bother with the grounding strap on the engine or on the transmission, but there is a good ground, which I've just done recently. I replaced the PCM, a good grounding strap going from the PCM to the engine block. So all the grounds are good. All the wires were stripped, cleaned back till I could get to everything. And you know, I checked for the past 4 days now. I've been working on this. Probably got a total of 36 hours-ish. And I have scoured the Jeep forums. I've scoured YouTube. There's all sorts of like the door jamb hinge points and groundings and the BCM and this and that, and not a single one showed these particular wires running through the, I guess the trim underneath the doors, or right inside the doors. So hopefully this helps somebody. Please hit that like and subscribe if it did, and stick around. Got all sorts of projects going on. So this is why I started the channel. Can't find stuff and I got to figure it out on my own. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.